In a Ukrainian forest, there is the Fountain of Life, located behind the Dark Mountain. The place offers power and vitality to the inhabitants of the forest. A long time ago, the owner of a locksmith shop went into the forest to capture a drop from the magic fountain in order to save his sick newborn daughter. After obtaining the elixir, he returned to the forest with an army to take over all the power of the source. A war then broke out, of which there were no winners, and all the humans who crossed into the forest disappeared. After a while, the magical creatures woke up and decided to prevent humans from entering the place. In the present day, Mavka awakens in spring. As if by magic, the ice begins to melt and colors appear all around her. The girl greets a pointy-eared animal called the swamp toad. She then awakens the forest by making the rest of the ice melt with a simple touch of her hand. Hush, the forest noise-keeper, suddenly appears and flies around on a bird. In the village, a musician called Lucas encourages his band to continue playing. However, they are interrupted when two strange vehicles throw leaflets at them, leaving the young man intrigued. At the same time, he receives a warning that his uncle has a health problem. In the bizarre vehicle, Kylina appears, claiming to be the daughter of the late owner of the locksmith shop, the man who commanded the attack on the forest in the past. The woman reveals that she will take over the sawmill and make the village rich, in exchange for which they must go to the Dark Mountain. This frightens the villagers. Back in the forest, Mavka comes across an angry lynx. She approaches the animal and touches it, realizing that a cub is caught in a trap. The girl helps free him and then touches his wounded paw, causing the injury to heal instantly. In the village, the young musician discovers that his uncle needs some medicine from the city, which costs a lot of money. Lucas collects his small savings but realizes it isn't enough. He decides to accept the job offered by Kylina. The woman returns to her old home, and during the move, her employees knock over a trunk, making her angry. There is something special inside. Suddenly, the musician knocks on the door and accepts the job offer, so Kylina hands him a drawing of a tree leaf which he must find behind the Dark Mountain. In the woods, the guardian of the forest appears, while all the inhabitants are waiting for him, except for Mavka, who arrives late for the meeting carrying the trap that caught the lynx cub. The nymphs are hurt, as they believe they should have protected the forest from any threat. The protector then decides that the spirits of the forest must choose a new guardian, as he no longer has the energy he used to. Mavka believes that any inhabitant can become the guardian, but the nymphs mock her, saying she is too good-natured for the task. Lucas sets off on his mission with his henchmen, Eric and Derek. Along the way, the trio reaches a passage blocked by a giant boulder, which the two men easily clear, revealing the hidden forest. Observing a herd of bison, the men prepare to shoot a calf, but the musician gets in the way, causing the projectile to deflect into the sky. The gunshot alerts the animals and inhabitants to the intruders. The henchmen threaten the young man and decide to let him go alone, handing him a map to mark the location of the tree. Mavka walks through the grass and comes across the bison herd running toward her. She mounts the leader and uses her magic to direct the animals into the forest, avoiding a cliff. Talking to the animals, she discovers there are humans in the forest and decides to deal with them alone without alerting her companions. Meanwhile, Lucas searches for the special tree and is frightened by the creatures of the woods. After a while, he plays his flute, unaware that Mavka is behind him, wearing an improvised costume to scare him. She removes her disguise and is enchanted by the melody, but ends up revealing her presence. She puts the mask back on, scaring the musician, who runs but hits a tree and faints. The girl approaches him and picks up the flute, believing it to be a magical object.
She hides it when she notices Hush's presence. Soon after, Hush comes across the human lying on the ground, frightening him. When Lucas suddenly wakes up, Hush hits him on the head, causing him to pass out again. Lucas wakes up tied to a bison. He claims he's going to get a reward for finding a special leaf. Even so, Hush gets bored and climbs on top of the animal, causing it to panic. In the confusion, Lucas's bindings come loose, and the noise-keeper is dragged away with a rope attached to his foot. Soon after, Lucas introduces himself to Mavka and her pet swamp toad. Meanwhile, Eric and Derek enter a dark part of the forest where a dense fog rises around them and nymphs begin to lurk. The two wield their weapons, and a squirrel hits Eric in the eye with a nut. When he regains his sight, he realizes his brother is no longer by his side. Hush suddenly appears and attacks Lucas, who tries to defend himself with a tree branch. This makes Mavka very angry and causes the sky to darken. Faced with the situation, they stop fighting. Mavka reveals that the musician's uncle needs a cure which she knows how to make, but she will only help him if he leaves the forest. In the dark part of the forest, the nymphs lure the brothers into a swamp and surround them. One of them notices something moving in the water and quickly climbs out of the lake with his underwear destroyed. Lucas wants to sing a song for Mavka, but she tells him he can't do that yet. No one must know he's in the forest. Later, the friends are surprised by Lesh, the guardian, who asks who's hiding behind the bushes. Lucas disguises himself and claims to be Hush's cousin. At her house, Kilina receives her two henchmen, who arrive battered. Realizing they haven't succeeded, she becomes stressed, and her skin suddenly ages. She runs to the mysterious chest and retrieves a rejuvenating potion, which restores her appearance, but the liquid inside is gone. She now desperately needs the location of the magic tree. The inhabitants gather around the mysterious tree in an enchanted cave. The guardian invokes the supreme spirits of nature, and a glow emerges from the colored rocks in the lake. The inhabitants bow their heads, awaiting the new protector. A branch from the tree reaches Mavka, choosing her as the new guardian. The girl begins to float, and the spirits grant her their powers. Magic bursts out of her body, and a sphere of power forms around her. The tree gently helps her down. Not everyone is happy. Some nymphs claim she is not the right choice. Lucas tries to defend Mavka, but Andina approaches and removes his disguise, revealing his true identity. Mavka steps on a stone, causing a purple mist to rise. Lucas uses the distraction to run into the dark forest, chased by angry locals. He hides in a hole, encountering a violent bear that rushes him out. Lucas jumps over a stream while a nymph chases him, and another emerges from the water. The two creatures collide, and he reaches the other side with the help of Mavka, who catches him with a vine. The musician mounts the lynx, and Mavka gives him the medicine to cure his uncle's illness. After he leaves, Andina accuses Mavka of letting a fugitive escape. That's when Mavka realizes her friend has forgotten his flute. It's broken, but she uses her magic to restore the instrument.
When she realizes that Lucas has returned from his mission, Madame Kilina orders her aide, Frol, to keep an eye on the young man, and she believes he has brought something from the woods. Later, the man goes to Lucas's house to spy and notices that there is a magic potion inside. However, he doesn't realize that the backyard chickens are sneaking up on him and soon attack him. Meanwhile, the musician keeps a hammer on a high shelf but doesn't notice that it's about to fall on his dog. Fortunately, his uncle manages to catch the tool before it causes a fatal accident. After the two leave the house, Frol breaks in through the window and steals the magic leaf. Even after leaving the place with ease, he's chased by the crazy rooster, Ken. Frol returns to the house and hands Kilina the magic leaf and the unmarked map, leaving the woman furious. On her journey to the village to return her friend's flute, the guardian of the forest meets some peasants. Afraid of her appearance, she uses her magic to turn her hair brown. What's more, she steals the torn clothes of a scarecrow. Swamp Toad enters Lucas's house and encounters the dog, who tries to warn his guardian that someone is inside. The creature eats all the pie in the place, but Lucas believes that his pet is to blame. Suddenly, Mavka appears in front of them, wearing the scarecrow's costume. She gives the flute to her friend, and he invites her to the festival where his band is playing a concert. At the party, the young woman wears a stunning outfit, leaving everyone mesmerized by her beauty. Soon after, Lucas starts playing his music, which causes the girl's magic to cover her body and her hair to return to its original color. Then Mavka appears and starts blaming her, encouraging the surrounding citizens to prepare to capture the teenager. Kilina's henchmen capture Mavka, even though the musician tries in vain to stop them. Mavka is about to be condemned, while Kilina encourages people, claiming that the forest spirits are evil. The girl uses her magic, and the villagers' torches are extinguished. In addition, Swamp Toad appears, strikes down the two henchmen, and manages to free his friend. Kilina falls off the stage, and Mavka tries to get out of the way, using her power to lift roots out of the ground. Lesh appears in front of her and prevents a giant fork from hitting her. He picks her up and runs away. The woman finds the girl's necklace lying on the ground, and continues to encourage the villagers to fight the forest dwellers. Lucas wakes up trapped inside a dungeon. He is surprised by Kylina, who demands that he mark the location of the source of life on the map. The young man refuses, so the woman brings in the girl and rips off her necklace with a sharp blade, threatening to destroy her. Faced with this situation, he marks the location of the tree on the map. The bandits remove the girl's hood, revealing that she was one of the henchmen in disguise. This infuriates Lucas, but Kylina locks the door to the dungeon and the place begins to fill with water. At the same time, Lesh reveals the truth behind the history of the war with the humans. A long time ago, when the humans attacked the inhabitants of the forest, the Guardian summoned the supreme spirit of the underworld, who granted him an enormous amount of rage, making him forget his identity and destroy everything on the surface of the earth. Meanwhile, in the village, Kylina claims to Lucas's uncle that the young man has been taken by the evil spirits of the forest. She also encourages the villagers to hunt down the creatures of the wild. Suddenly, she reveals a giant machine which one of her henchmen is driving toward the forest. At the same time, the Guardian notices the threat and warns the other inhabitants. In the dungeon, Lucas is increasingly surrounded by water and tries to get out through the window. When he realizes that his dog is outside, he asks the animal to get help. In the forest, Kylina appears with her machinery, destroying everything, while the villagers set fire to the surrounding trees. However, Mavka uses roots to immobilize the machine. She then proposes peace to the woman, who reveals that long ago she received a drop from the Tree of Life. She is the wife of the locksmith shop's owner, who was given the power to make her younger. Even so, Kylina decided that she needs all of the life source in order not to age, which infuriates Mavka. What's more, Kylina claims that she paid Lucas to give her the location of the Tree of Life and that he left for the big city. Suddenly, the villain controls the tractor, frees herself from the roots, and knocks the girl to the ground. All the inhabitants of the forest go into battle against the humans, who throw flaming weapons and use chainsaws to attack the poor creatures. During the fight, the musician's dog appears, but ends up getting caught on a branch. Minutes later, Swamp Toad finds him and saves him. The pet reveals that the young man has not betrayed the forest dwellers, and that he is trapped in the enemy lair. In the house, Froth is surprised when 3 creatures come flying through the window.
The noise-keeper then goes after the man, while the other 2 animals go in search of Lucas. Lucas is almost covered in water when the animals look for a way to get him out. Hush deftly dodges the assistant, who puts on a moose's head and loses his sight. In the forest, one of Ken's henchmen is struck by 2 giant plants. At the same time, the lynx attacks some humans who are cutting down trees, but ends up being captured by them. On the other hand, Lucas's uncle is about to attack a creature, but feels sorry for it and helps it escape the battlefield. In the dungeon, the young musician is covered by the flood, but his friends manage to open the door. Swamp Toad dives into the water, bringing the young man back to the surface. While Lucas is waking up, the helper finds a chainsaw upstairs in the house and intends to use it in the forest. Mavka feels weak and sees her companions being attacked and losing the battle to the humans. She tries to use her powers, but still feels very weak. Just then, the Tree of Life begins to fade. Soon after, Kylina appears with the giant machine and directs it at Lesh, the ancient guardian of the forest. Faced with this situation, the girl decides to invoke the Supreme Spirit. Then everything around her is paralyzed, and the magical being appears before her, claiming that obtaining the power will cost the girl her life. Nevertheless, the young woman decides to use the magic to end the war. She places the flame on her chest, and the leaves of the tree turn red, while she takes on a dark appearance, and her hair becomes fire. Suddenly, a tornado appears around Mavka and blows everyone away in a storm of flame. Meanwhile, Hush is cornered by the madman, but Lucas interrupts the attack and throws the man into a cupboard. However, the opponent freaks out with a garment obstructing his vision, making him jump out of the window. As they leave the house, the musician and his friends realize that Mavka is heading toward the village, destroying everything in her hurricane of fire. During the confusion, one of Ken's henchmen saves Andina from the flames. Soon afterward, Lucas arrives on the scene and shouts for his beloved, but she doesn't listen. The young man uses a bird to approach her through the sky. He begs Mavka to stop her attack, but she doesn't care. So Lucas decides to jump from the bird toward the girl, but ends up being thrown out of the tornado and falling to the ground. Even so, Lucas decides to risk his life to save the young woman. He starts playing his music for her to hear. The tornado comes closer and closer, and Mavka's true soul tries to break free, even as the evil one resists. All the villagers and forest dwellers join in the song to make the melody louder, which causes the red flame in the girl's skin to fade, as if no life inhabited her body. Lucas quickly approaches his friend and drops a tear on her body. Somewhere in the void, the girl tells the spirit that she doesn't feel angry because she has heard the musician's voice and knows that he has always been truthful. After Mavka insists on staying alive, the magic in her body reignites and she awakens. The girl declares to Lucas that his music is the real magic, while the young man believes that it's actually love. Then the two kiss, and so the humans and forest creatures are finally at peace.